morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Really nice to have you along this morning.
I've been listening to you for years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
You sound a little taller on radio. Dispensing a daily dose of common sense. No prescription required.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the Greg Belfrage Show.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show, Thursday, March 27th. Really great to have you along this morning. There was a lot of pushback coming from conservatives in the media regarding the whole Signalgate issue. And there are a number of opinion pieces starting with, and these are folks that I respect. Every one of them. Miranda Devine is someone whom I have mentioned often on this program. She's done, I think, some really, she gets some very insightful pieces that she's written, editorials, her thoughts. And she says she's got a piece at the New York Post. There's no getting around the fact that Signalgate was a blunder. She said, in soccer terms, it was an own goal, a totally unnecessary screw-up that set back the Trump team. But the team is still winning. The opposition is still in total disarray, fighting among themselves. And then she goes on to talk about what's happened, and she's calling it, in soccer terms, she said, it was an own goal, totally unnecessary screw-up. Yeah, it was an unforced error is what it was. And the more we're learning, the more troubling it becomes. And we'll get into the details of that here as we go on. But Andrew McCarthy, again, somebody that I really respect, at the New York Post. He's got a piece headline, Trump team can't argue these messages weren't classified. Of course they were! Exclamation point. He said, it is undeniable, or at least it should be, that information providing advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing an attack is to be classified as top secret. That is what is mandated by the government's own classification guide. And he goes on. He said, I don't see how the Trump administration or anyone else could credibly contend that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's texts on an unclassified signal communications chain did not contain such advance warnings. He said, indeed, that was Hegseth's purpose. He was alerting other top national security officials in the 2 hours prior to the attacks against the Houthis that the operation against the Houthis was on. And then he goes on. One of the things that's happened here is you had Hegseth out and going after the Atlantic, and Jeffrey Goldberg of the Atlantic, who is behind these pieces, and really going after him and I thought in a pretty tough kind of vicious way. And I mentioned to you even yesterday, I've been having some trouble here with this. Well, a number of others are as well. Andrew McCarthy talking about it, and so he's out there talking Hegseth, talking smack about Andrew Goldberg. So the Atlantic then yesterday released the entire thing. They released the entire text, the texts and the messages as they had received them. And it's absolutely clear that Hegseth was sharing, information about the attack, so on. So to say that they weren't, it's right there in front of us. We can all see it. And this is what's amazing. And this is where you start talking, well, I don't want to get, we'll get into it as the morning goes on this morning. And I really want to get your reaction to this. And then enter the National Review. There's a piece of National Review. Mark Antonio Wright says, on Monday, I wrote that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth should be fired for his egregious behavior in the chat and disclosing this information. And he says, over the subsequent 36 hours, Hegseth and the White House repeatedly denied there were any war plans or classified information were shared over the chat. Hegseth said nobody texted war plans. Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary, insisted no classified material was sent to the thread. No war plans were discussed. So what the Atlantic did, again, they went, they're hearing the Trump team saying, nope, not true. So the Atlantic, and I don't blame them. You cannot blame them. That the Atlantic then responds by saying, oh yeah, not true. Here's the whole thing. They released the whole thing yesterday. And it is true. It absolutely is true. And so now you're seeing these conservative media outlets, some who are pushing back against what's going on. I have, these are big national issues, and I'm trying to keep track. I'm just a local guy trying to give you a heads up on what's going on in the world every day. So I was, as this has been going on, the more that we've learned, I think it's very, very clear. We had people who were out there saying things that just simply were not true. The fact of the matter is, that's what happened. And I think really the question is now is where do you go from here? Miranda Devine in her piece this morning is trying to make the argument that the Trump team can, they're doing okay and they got some, I think there's got to be more than that. I mean, I really have I have had the thought, and I wondered this yesterday, and I'm convinced of it today, that there need to be changes in the administration. The president has got to say, this can't, I understand the president who has been lied about, who has been persecuted. So I understand his, it's kind of, we're going to stand tough and this fake media and this, I think many of us would agree that maybe we don't have great things to say about the Atlantic, but in this case, sometimes truth is truth, fact is fact. And I think it's just an absolute mistake to either ignore it, dig in, as the administration seems to be doing. I think that's a big mistake, because I think what you and I and what many of us want to do is we want to be guided by principle in everything we do. We don't just want to give it lip service. We want to, and what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing this from, you're hearing it from the White House, you're hearing it, Senator Ted Cruz was out there, on one hand, he's talking about, yes, this is, clearly, but the Democrats did this. This is one of those times the Democrats have done all of that stuff. This is why the Democrats have no credibility now. They're belly aching and they're whining. You got Hakeem Jeffries out there, one of the top Democrats, who now is calling for Hegseth to resign. A growing number of calls. And I think the way you get out in front of this is the president then says, yeah, boom, we're making changes. We've got to make changes as a result of this. Is it unfortunate? Is it? Yeah. Because Hegseth clearly lied. He clearly lied. I don't think you have to be a genius to recognize that, he lied. Why he lied, I don't know. Why because I will tell you, I get just as frustrated if we have got, I even more so, when the Trump White House is not being truthful or they're lying. I have more problem with that than I do than when the Democrats are lying, because I expect that from the Democrats. I have a really low bar. I mean, I just don't expect a lot. So it's kind of par for the course that the Democrats are lying again. The Republicans, do you want to be better than that? Do you want to be a party of principle? Do you want to be focused on those things? We've got to talk about this coming up this morning. So the president yesterday said this whole thing is a witch hunt. And again, I'm sympathetic to what Donald Trump is saying, because totally understand that he has been targeted. There have been attempts to try to tear down, I think, his first administration. This is one of those things, it's an unforced error. They did this. Democrats didn't do this to them. They did it themselves. And that is the big difference. And I really have a problem now that the president said, this was yesterday in the Oval Office. He said, Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Because he was asked, should Hegseth then should you take a look at Hegseth? Should you fire him? Was the question to the president. And he says, how do you bring Hegseth into this? Look, it's all a witch hunt. Is it a witch hunt? I think you got to understand that when you make a blatant, obvious mistake like this, whoever did it, whatever the circumstances of it, Mike Waltz, he's the one saying, rests with him. It was his fault. We talked about, I shared news of that with you yesterday. That was a very big story. I don't. It's really bothersome to me when the Republicans start sounding like Democrats, because this is what the Democrats do. And I get quite frustrated. Is the party going to be a party of principle and law? Principle primarily in this case. So a lot of the stories this morning, Straight Arrow News calls for Hegseth resignation grow. Democrats, including Senator Mark Kelly, argue that this security lapse puts military members in danger. And again, I'm like those Republicans that have a really hard time with that, because when the Democrats were in control, and like what happened with Afghanistan and the withdrawal and the whole mess that was, and putting people in harm's way. Yeah, I think we all get that. That doesn't mean that it's okay that if you're not truthful, you know what I mean? Some things are wrong, and they're always wrong. And this is just one of those times. So also there are lawsuits. 5 cabinet members now facing a federal lawsuit over their use of the Signal app for that conversation that was underway. Lawsuit also targeted the National Archives and Records Administration. because they did not properly preserve the conversations then. That lawsuit is underway. Lawyers have requested that the judge declare the use of Signal to be illegal. There's just a lot going on surrounding this. We've got to talk about it. Time Magazine, left-wing Time Magazine, Pete Hegseth facing more calls to resign. That was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, highest-ranking Democrat, to call for Hegseth to resign over all of this mess. I don't think there's any other word for it. He said, Pete Hegseth is the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history. His continued presence in the top position of leadership at the Pentagon threatens the nation's security, puts our brave men and women in uniform throughout the world in danger. Now, again, a lot of this is hard to stomach because of how Democrats treated the brave men and women in uniform when they were in power, but just a growing number of calls then. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, again, Democrat, saying that Hegseth's and Walz's denials that classified information or war plans were discussed. He said in a statement they must both resign, and this just goes on. And I want to be very clear with you this morning as we talk about this. I want to be on the record. The idea that it's okay not okay when you lie, okay when I lie. That's never been my philosophy. It's not something I believe. And it's not a surprise to me that you've got a growing number of conservative media that are speaking out against this and what's happening. So we'll talk about it coming up this morning. Other big stories today. The president announced yesterday he will place a 25% tariff on automobile imports into the country. We'll start on April 2nd. He said the tariffs will bring in between $600 billion and $1 trillion in revenue over the next 2 years. And he said the number will be used to reduce debt greatly. Basically, I view it as reducing taxes and reducing debt. And I think our automobile business will flourish like it's never flourished before. So an additional 25% tariffs on automobile imports, and you've got other countries, that Canada in particular, responding to some of these things. Also, Kristi Noem arrived in El Salvador yesterday, and she has been touring the prison that's currently housed by gang members that were deported by the Trump administration. So she arrived at the Terrorism Confinement Center, got like 250 members suspected to be members of Tren de Aragua and MS-13. So Kristi Noem was there. And she also posted she took photos, posted some video, and got a glimpse of what's going on in the prison. And this guy, I had not heard this before, the New York Post. True to her nickname, Ice Barbie. Have you heard that? ICE, of course, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Ice Barbie apparently is the nickname that Noem has displayed. They say, true to her nickname, Ice Barbie Gnome put her flowing hair on display under her ice baseball hat. As she was led through the facility after the tour, she met with the president of El Salvador. And she said on Monday, she said, we're in several other countries around the world with a message right now saying that if you were thinking of coming to America illegally, don't do it. You are not welcome. Also, yesterday, you had the CEO of NPR talking to Congress on a number of different things, admitting they should have covered the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively. So you had NPR's CEO, Catherine Maher, also the CEO of PBS, being grilled by House Republicans yesterday. And she said, now this is Catherine Maher of NPR. I do want to say that NPR acknowledges we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively and sooner. Yeah, everyone was, with the exception of the New York Post. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. 627. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. Clear skies and 38. And this portion of our show brought to you by the window shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
528 Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires. The Give You More Tire and Automotive Store.
It's time to stop making excuses. The peace of mind you get after a colonoscopy is worth it. It's the best way to prevent and detect one of the deadliest cancers. In fact, your doctor can remove precancerous polyps during the procedure if necessary. That's right, before it even turns to cancer. No buts about it. Get a colonoscopy at 45 and follow up every 10 years or as recommended by your doctor. Find a location or schedule now at avera.org/colon.
Looking for top quality trucks and equipment without the hassle? TransSource Truck and Equipment has you covered. As a family-owned company, TransSource is committed to providing superior service for all brands. They offer affordable leasing and financing options tailored to your needs. Plus, their dedicated team ensures exceptional service and parts to keep your equipment running smoothly. Get the equipment and trucks you need without the stress. Visit TransSourceUSA.com. That's TransSourceUSA.com. Your Volvo, CE, and Max sales dealer. TransSource Truck and Equipment.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. But don't just take our word for it. Here's Jackie and Veronica, real customers.
I didn't know that I could get something for a lot less money that was actually better than who I was with before.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
Our US-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Just call or click to see how much you can save today. Because when it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com. That's 1-888-FREEDOM or consumer.
.630, clear skies, 38 currently at Kello. We'll check in with Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center here shortly. South Dakota government employee facing several charges for child porn, sexual exploitation of a minor. Joe will have details on that story and more coming up for you in moments. Fox News Radio is next. Then we'll check out stories that are trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery coming up.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney meets with his cabinet today to discuss retaliation for 25% tariffs coming on imported autos and auto parts used in factories here being imposed by President Trump.
A lot of companies are going to be in great shape because they've already built their plant. but their plants are underutilized, so they'll be able to expand them inexpensively and quickly. But others will come into our country and build, and they're already looking for sites.
Most industry analysts say prices will go up. The top Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, wants an expedited Inspector General review of how a journalist was added to a group chat about attack plans in Yemen. Democrat Tammy Duckworth on Fox.
I worry that our allies might not share information with us if they feel that we do not know how to safeguard. So I really want to thank Chairman Wicker for agreeing to do this.
The president and people on that chat say no laws were broken, no classified information was shared. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A South Dakota government employee is facing several charges for child porn and sexual exploitation of a minor. Attorney General Marty Jackley says 24-year-old Mohammed Goshen was arrested Tuesday. The DCI received a tip from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children about a missing 15-year-old girl from North Carolina. Investigators discovered Goshen had been in contact with her. Goshen was released on a $10,000 cash bond. He is currently listed as an employee of the Department of Social Services. The case involving the body of a man found under a bridge in Rapid City earlier this week is now being investigated as a homicide. Rapid City police identified the body as that of 64-year-old Jerry Evans of Rapid City. An autopsy revealed Evans suffered significant blunt force trauma. Police say it happened within a concealed outdoor camp, purposefully hidden under the bridge. Investigators continue to look for a suspect. The city of Mitchell is this year's Economic Development Community of the Year, an award handed out by the Governor's Office of Economic Development. But the city's Economic Development Corporation won't stop there. CEO Mike Lauriston says Central Electric Cooperative helped its group secure a $1 million interest-free 10-year loan for a new industrial park.
Their incentive to do these programs is growing their customer base. And so it's kind of a give back to the community, but it helps them grow at the same time.
In addition to the industrial park, the construction of a $60 million new high school and a revitalized downtown district further highlights Mitchell's commitment to community development. And in sports, local college football standouts are trying to live out their dream of playing in the NFL. South Dakota State held its Pro Day yesterday in Brookings for NFL scouts to get a look at the talent coming out of the SDSU football program. The NFL draft will be in Green Bay in just under a month. 8 former Jackrabbits made their way into NFL camps last year. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Partly cloudy skies and a little warmer today in Sioux Falls. Our high at 67, easterly wind at 10 to 15. Low tonight 48, and then tomorrow record-breaking highs are possible. 83 in Sioux Falls, 88 tomorrow in Yankton. And then we fire up a couple thunderstorm chances tomorrow night. Rain to snow this weekend. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm Brian Karstens.
The place to go when you need to know. Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9, and Kello.com.
Humanoid robots have been around for more than 100 years. Not in real life, of course, but think back to the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz book that was published in 1900. But the word from NVIDIA's CEO is that real robots are less than 5 years away. I'm Kim Commando for LinkedIn Jobs. Find qualified candidates quickly. Post a job for free right now at linkedin.com/Kim. The robots coming before 2030 will walk and run just like humans. They won't look or act like C-3PO or Gort, the robot from the day the Earth stood still. And especially not like the Lost in Space guy that spent most of its time shouting, "Danger, Will Robinson." The first generation of real robots will perform boring, repetitive, and sometimes hazardous jobs. The cost, around $100,000 each. And by the way, TV's ultimate robot, Data, from Star Trek's Next Generation, is nowhere in sight and won't be for decades. Stay tech ahead with my free newsletter. Sign up right now at getkim.com. As a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that grinds just as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. Their new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people. Either post your job for free or pay to promote. Promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants. At the end of the day, The most important thing to your small business is the quality of candidates. And with LinkedIn, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Kim. That's linkedin.com/Kim to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Do it today. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home with Renewal by Anderson Picture and Combination Windows. Optimizing a beautiful view and light in the bedroom, kitchen, or living room from ABC Seamless of Sioux Falls. Call 605-646-2667 today.
That's ABC Seamless.
Come to the Washington Pavilion and come face to face with the genius of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The South Dakota Symphony and Chorus under Delta David Geyer performs Mozart's magnificent Mass in C minor, sponsored by Avera and Healing Group. Tickets start at $19. Visit sdsymphony.org or call 605-731-2440. Saturday, April 5th, one performance only at the Washington Pavilion. Mozart's glorious Mass in C minor with the South Dakota Symphony Orchestra.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-8968. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at tra.com or call 800-575-8968. That's 800-575-8968. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
More happens in South Dakota every day than we can fit on one radio station, even Kello. That's why there's Kello.com and Kello on your phone with a free Kello AM app.
With local stories, podcasts, and other exclusive content.
Get more of South Dakota. Kello News.
$6.39. Excuse me. Clear skies, 38 currently at Kello. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. The president signed an executive order yesterday imposing 25% tariffs on all cars and light-duty trucks that are imported into the United States. And he's saying the reason for this, it'll force more automakers to come into the United States and create jobs. So the automakers have been warning for weeks that the tariffs could hurt their businesses, increase prices, and the president is saying you're going to see prices come down, he said. He said the tariff threat is already driving companies to open more plants in the U.S. He said, Honda plans to expand in Indiana. You have the announcement of Hyundai coming to the United States this week. Also, Russia is walking back its agreement to establish a maritime ceasefire on the Black Sea. And they are saying that Western nations must first lift their economic sanctions. They will only participate in the cessation of maritime hostilities if that happens. So they, as you know, there has been quite a number of sanctions imposed on Russian industry and banking. And so the United States is hearing this out. Europe is dismissing it out of hand. A European Union Commission spokesperson said that an unconditional withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukraine is required. Also, you've got Ukraine weighing in on what's happening, and Ukraine's President Zelensky warning that he's just saying he has no trust in Russian President Vladimir Putin, which you can absolutely understand. And Zelensky said on Tuesday, results are needed from Russia. We do not trust them. And frankly, the world doesn't trust Russia, and they must prove they are truly ready to end the war, ready to stop lying to the world, to President Trump, and to America. How Russia behaves in the coming days will reveal a lot, if not everything, said Zelensky. Also, when I shared this news with you yesterday, the president signing an executive action on Tuesday to overhaul elections in the United States, including requiring proof of citizenship to be able to vote in federal elections, demanding that all ballots be received by election day. He says the U.S. has failed to enforce basic and necessary election protections, and he called on the states to work with federal agencies to share their voter lists and prosecute election crimes, threatens to pull federal funding from states where election officials don't comply. The Supreme Court has upheld rules that require background checks on ghost guns. And these are rules that went into place during the Biden era. Federal regulations on ghost guns, those are these mail order kits that allow people to build untraceable weapons themselves at home. And Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the opinion for a 7-2 majority that included both liberal and conservative justices. And Gorsuch said perhaps a half-hour work is required before anyone can fire a shot. But even if sold, the kit comes with all necessary components, and its intended function as an instrument of combat is obvious. Really, the kit's name says it all. Buy, build, shoot, he said. So the U.S. Supreme Court upholding the rules requiring background checks for ghost guns. Also, a federal appeals court on Tuesday paused a lower court's decision that blocked the Trump administration from rejecting new refugees. This is a small win for the White House on immigration policy. 3-judge panel said that anyone conditionally approved by the government as a refugee before Trump took office must be allowed to keep the refugee status, but that Trump had the authority to stop the acceptance of all new refugees. So it's a temporary stay of a lower court's preliminary injunction. Man, the lawsuits are, the court rulings are flying all over the place. Also, The Atlantic published that Signal group chat and messages among the country's national security leaders that were shared with Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. And after, I think you had some officials who had tough words for Goldberg in The Atlantic just released all of the chat. And this is troubling. We're going to wind up, and not because of what The Atlantic has done. It's about the fact you got folks who were out there openly lying about the information that was shared. So we'll talk about that coming up this morning. Dollar Tree said this week that they will be selling Family Dollar for $1 billion to a pair of private equity firms. Probably heard this on the Fox Business Report here over the last few days. Dollar Tree said that it will purchase Family Dollar and the company names that really don't mean a lot to most of us, I think. So Dollar Tree and Family Dollar cater to low-income shoppers. Family Dollar locations struggling to gain traction. So then the parent company last year announced plans to shutter about 1,000 of the Family Dollar locations. Family Dollar also facing competition from Walmart, other large retailers. Dollar Tree said that many Family Dollar customers were extremely price conscious, while the chain was also hurt by a big rise in the number of shoplifting incidents, which hurt the bottom line. So in other words, Dollar Tree has been struggling for a number of reasons. Family Dollar, part of that. So they're going to sell Family Dollar for $1 billion. They bought it. They spent more than $8 billion buying Family Dollar. So taking a big loss. You've been following what's going on with Disney Snow White. I know. Oh, there have been that train wreck of a movie has been trending just about all week. And now we're learning that Disney had hired a social media guru for star Rachel Zegler. And this was after her Zegler's tweets had sparked death threats against Gal Gadot, who's also she plays the evil stepmother of Snow White, and apparently quite good. I have not seen the movie, nor do I have a lot of interest in seeing the movie. But it's been a fiasco. Variety's got a piece. Inside Disney's Snow White fiasco, death threats, beefed up security, and a social media guru for Rachel Zegler. Hollywood Reporter, how Snow White landed in potential bomb territory. Yeah, that's all reports are. Just not good. Also, new Mega Millions rules will more than double the jackpot value. So overall odds of winning any prize will improve to 1 in 23 from 1 in 24. So these new Mega Millions rules coming into play in next month. Also, the price of playing going up. That's the other side of this. And they're saying jackpots will grow faster, higher dollar amounts, which would make sense then because you're raising prices as well. Also, Napster has been sold to Infinite Reality for $207 million. They announced this earlier this week that they had bought Napster in hopes of transforming it into a social music platform where artists can connect with fans and then better monetize off their work. If you remember Napster, folks were not profiting from their work. It's one of the reasons why Napster went away. It went bye-bye because there were a number of folks who were, everything from authors to musicians who were upset with Napster. But you have this company paying $207 million for the brand. But they want to change it into a social music platform so folks can better monetize their, announce and share and monetize their work. Also, former NFL pass rusher J.J. Watt be making a major internal move at CBS. Was revealed yesterday that Watt will be moving from the desk to the booth, as he is set to become the network's #2 color commentator for NFL games next season. So previously he was an analyst on the desk of NFL Today, and so now he's going into the booth, and he'll be stationed alongside Ian Eagle. Also, Xavier has hired Richard Pitino as their men's basketball coach. That story is trending. He is the son of Hall of Fame coach Rick Pitino. This is Richard Pitino. He's completed his 4th season. He's the head coach at New Mexico, which has led to the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row. Also, there's a story, and this is while 2 French Air Force jets collided midair while they were rehearsing for a stunt. It's happened in eastern France yesterday afternoon during a drill that was involving like 6 jets, and there's footage of all this. Shows a group of jets flying in, they're flying in formation. They're firing colored smoke flares when 2 planes suddenly collided. They quickly began to plummet, impact literally falling from the sky. Authorities say both aircraft were destroyed in the crash and the pilots ejected. You imagine that, ejecting from the plane, and you watch the plane go down, erupt into a fireball. That's literally what French Air Force officials say. The pilots were found alive and conscious, which is good news. So this was a formation flight, and it's pretty shocking. There's photo and video of that. Remember Luigi Mangione? He's the alleged shooter of the United Healthcare CEO. In a court filing this week, Mangione's lawyers asked if he could be provided a laptop in order to view documents against him. They want him to be able to view documents, video, other material that is related to the case, not for any communication purposes. So if he does get a laptop, it wouldn't be able to connect to the internet, wouldn't be able to run any sort of entertainment. So while he's in the jail, the laptop would give him access to, there are like 15,000 pages of documents, hours of video that prosecutors have gathered for the case. Also, a Columbia University student from South Korea who is facing potential deportation for her involvement in a pro-Palestinian protest cannot be taken into immigration detention, a federal judge said this week. So this is a setback for the Trump administration and their efforts to throw non-citizens out of the country for participating in campus protests that the federal government has said that these are anti-Semitic. I don't think there's any doubt of that. Anti-Semitic, sympathetic to Hamas, and the students say the government is targeting them for advocating for Palestinian rights. Also, NATO this week clarified some comments that the Secretary General had made when he suggested that 4 U.S. soldiers who went missing while training in Lithuania had died. And the U.S. Army said that wasn't confirmed. And so NATO then said the search is ongoing. We regret any confusion about the remarks that were delivered. He was referring to emerging news reports, was not confirming the fate of the missing, which is still unknown. So at this point, these are soldiers from 1st Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, and they were doing tactical training when they went missing. And that's a look at the stories that are trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thanks so much for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. It's 6:57. Beautiful morning. Clear skies and 38. This hour of our show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Quench your thirst for information.
Thanks for being here this morning. Nice to start the day with you. Please come back at 9:30 for the 4th hour. So long until then.